My name is William Cosgrove. I am a Senior Financial Systems Manager at Chanel, and I'm joined by Mike Fredericks, the Principal for FinWeb Solutions. And we're excited to be here today to talk to you guys about the possibilities of RPA and process automation in general in regards to the Hyperion suite of products, specifically with Essbase. So again, thank you very much for taking the time and being here this morning, this afternoon. I am actually in the place where it is 5 o'clock somewhere, although my accent may not give that away. I am working at the Chanel corporate headquarters in London in the UK. A little bit about my background. I've been working with Chanel for the past 8 years, with the first 6 years being in New York, and the last 2 getting the opportunity to move over here to London to work at the corporate offices of Chanel and to support the entire global user community at Chanel. I started out as the FDM administrator and moving up to the Essbase administrator, and now I have taken over the role of the head of finance, innovation, and process and automation for Chanel Global Corporate, as well as the entire UK region. I've been working with Mike for the past 8 years, pretty much my entire time at Chanel, and he's been our fantastic infrastructure consultant during that time, and he's partnered with me in order to move forward with the RPA projects that we've done here at Chanel. So what I want to do is first I like to show this short video, which basically I want to take the worst parts of your job and the parts of your job that make you want to take a baseball bat to that computer and improve that. So the 3 things that I want to hit on today before I get into the which processes and are best for automation and how we use automation at Chanel. I'm going to touch on the RPA cases that are best with Hyperion. That's obviously what everyone's here for at a Hyperion conference. So I'm going to be going through that, what we've used RPA for with Essbase and with other aspects of Hyperion, and a little bit of what worked and what didn't work, what were some of the pitfalls and what were some of the lessons learned. Secondly, I want to discuss how you start and go through your own personal RPA journey with your own company. I think a lot of times, when you get buzzwords like RPA, you have these big consultancy firms coming in and telling you that, oh, RPA can save the world and it'll save you hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And that's not what I really want to focus on today. What I want to focus on is what has worked with a company like ours, and what hasn't worked, and what are some of the promises that were made by some of the big consultancy firms that kind of fell flat. And obviously when you try something and it falls flat, that costs money. And finally, to go through some of the technical pieces on what we have done with RPA and Hyperion that have worked. So before I go through the processes, I think the first part of the RPA journey is defining what a successful RPA journey is. For some companies, that's a straight up saving headcount. So you want to go in and you want your virtual workforce to eliminate 40 employees in your AR and AP departments. That's certainly one way to go about it, but I don't think that's the most humane way to go about it. Because the fact is that people who don't understand what RPA is trying to do or what your company is trying to do with RPA are quite frankly scared of RPA because they think it is going to come in and take their jobs. So what I'm also going to touch on a little later is how you can best evangelize RPA around your company by being able to soften the blow of what RPA is trying to do and tell people that this is not something that's here to take your jobs. The second, obviously most common KPI is getting a return on investment out of what the money you're investing in both the RPA software as well as the consultancy hours or the internal headcount hours that go along with what you're trying to do with RPA. And while ROI is definitely a part of what we're trying to do here at Chanel, what we're really trying to focus on are the last two KPIs that I'm going to mention is what mundane processes are currently done that are preventing employees from doing more value-added tasks. What kind of Excel sheets are they filling out over and over again? You look at some of the things that are on my slide, and we look at repeatable keystrokes and doing filters on huge data files. We don't want our employees to be stuck doing that again and again and again. Not only is that going to lead to human error and other pitfalls of big data, but that's also going to lead to unhappy employees, which is one of our KPIs that we're trying to implement around the world with RPA is an employee happiness factor. So what we do at the end of our RPA projects is go around, we talk to the employees who RPA actually affects and touches, and gauge what their happiness factor is before RPA and after RPA. And to hear some of these stories it's really inspiring in the fact that you might save somebody 2 hours a week, but those are 2 hours a week where they're going to say, hey, thank you, I was not able to get to my kid's soccer game or my kid's hockey game, but now these 2 hours I am able to get there. So while those 2 hours might not seem a huge ROI in the grand scheme of things, that definitely adds to an employee happiness factor. So what processes are best for RPA? Obviously, we have the repeatable clicks and keystrokes process. And I think that if you have experienced any kinds of presentations with RPA, that's what they're going to key on. But I want to focus on the processes that are done across multiple tools from a Hyperion perspective. So obviously with, I think my biggest complaint that I get from end users is there's, 3 different systems that don't talk to each other. I have data in system A, system B, and system C. How do I get them together? And that is a great use of RPA that can be focused with Hyperion. And the other area that I wanted to focus on was audit and governance reviews. I know for a lot of us who have to go through the system audits, I mean, the amount of work that has to be done to get sign off on those things is really challenging. So how do we work with the IT department and with our external audit partners to be able to get processes with RPA that can save you time and effort and headache when it comes to these audit and governance reviews? So I think when people hear about RPA nowadays, they think it's a panacea and a silver bullet, and it's not. I hate to mention that as somebody who has led the charge of RPA at Chanel, but RPA is just one tool in the process automation toolkit, and I think it's a bit myopic that a lot of consultancy firms and a lot of companies just focus on RPA only. One of the things that we learned at the beginning is you do not want to put RPA on top of a bad process. The first step in any RPA or automation journey should be process evaluation. And I know we all have processes that have been going on for 10 years and have been passed down from employee to employee, and nobody's ever questioned them. RPA gives you the excuse to question all of these processes that have been in place forever. And previously, in a world before RPA, when I would ask somebody, oh, why are you doing it this way? The answer was, oh, well, that's the way it's always been done. RPA gives you a great excuse to go in and say, well, maybe if we changed X, Y, and Z, we can make this process a lot easier for you. And you tend to get a lot more employees that are being open to the idea of RPA and of reviewing their processes when you have RPA as kind of an excuse for them. But to purely focus on RPA is a terrible idea. RPA is not a band-aid. RPA is not something that should be thrown on top of Essbase and all your problems are going to go away, because that's not the case. And unfortunately, we learned that with some of our processes the hard way. Keep an open mind to what new technologies are out there. At Chanel, I think one of the most successful process automation projects that we've had was when we said, no, this is not a good RPA candidate, gave the reasons why, and we were able to go out into the marketplace and find a different tool that can do the process quicker, better, and more importantly, cheaper. So while that wasn't an RPA win, that was a real big process automation win. So I try to tell people when we discuss what RPA is, to not call it RPA, to call it process automation or finance innovation, because you really pigeonhole yourself if you're just looking at RPA. And I know that sounds kind of silly, as I'm now going to go in and talk about all the great things that you can do with RPA, but I really found that has been successful. So if we can move on to some of the lessons that I have learned in doing RPA at Chanel, is to aim small. So what I mean by that is you have some of the bigger consultancy firms coming in and saying, we get 1 million credit card transactions a day. We can do that in 20 minutes. And you're kind of wowed by that idea, saying, oh, that sounds terrific. But if you really think about it, is that what your business really does? Is your business really processing that many credit card transactions a day? Is your call center really getting 100,000 calls a day? Aim small. Listen to other companies that are your size and maybe in your niche that have gone along this RPA journey, because the stories that you'll get from them are, number one, going to be more truthful than somebody who's looking to come in and offer you a consultancy. And number two, they're going to be more realistic about where is the best areas in RPA to succeed, and where are the cliffs that you can step off of and potentially run into trouble. So my suggestion is going for the home run right off the bat is most likely going to lead to projects that are overdue, projects that are over budget, and that give bad PR to your RPA program. And the last two things that I said about being over budget is RPA is going to be expensive because of the consultancy that you're gonna have to bring in. So if your first project goes over budget, it's really going to leave a bad taste in the decision maker's mouth on how to move forward. So aim small, get a couple of processes under your belt that show the success of the tool, and that the tool can move towards scalability within the company. And finally, when I mentioned PR, I think PR is one of the most important things when it comes to RPA, and how you show what RPA can do across the company. What I think was the best success for what we did at Chanel is when you have people coming in and third parties coming in and showing you, like I said, call centers or credit card transactions, it doesn't really click with the people that are working in your office. So what I did is I found a process, say monthly close, where everyone in our FP&A and accounting department knew what that was. You get 2 small wins there, and you present that to the team. That leads you to bigger wins going forward. The next thing that I would like to talk about is, it's about the people that are actually affected by RPA and touched by RPA. When I first started, I had the CFO of our company going on about how great it was, that we're being innovative and what the potential of this is. And sure, it comes from the CFO. Everyone knows who the CFO is. But I got a suggestion from our automation partner, Automation Anywhere, that the best strategy is to actually talk to the junior analyst who's actually saving the time. And when we did interview the junior analyst and we presented that, that's where people were most affected, and seeing that this can actually improve their quality of employment and their quality of life. And we can move forward with that. And I think the biggest one is to be a team player and get everyone involved before a project starts. I'm sure half the people in here roll up to IT, and the other half roll up to finance. I personally roll up to finance. And not getting IT on board, was a huge mistake that I made at the beginning, because you are going to need those IT solutions to set up your RPA environment. I mean, it's a huge investment in time, and you are going to need IT buy-in. So I would really make sure that you try to loop IT in as quickly as possible. And one of the key ways that I actually went about trying to loop IT in is by telling them what a great tool RPA can be to do a lot of their reviewing of nightly backups and reviewing of their audit logs. And that's some of the things that we're moving forward with now. So get them excited about the prospects for their own RPA, and then that will help you and build up a relationship to get IT to do their best to set up your RPA environment. So now some of the things that, if we can get into more technical aspect of what some of the things that we've done that have been huge wins in Hyperion. So we looked at what we can do on a daily basis for our bots to be the most productive. And one of the things that we quickly focused on was any error files that were created in trying to load from our FDM environment into our Essbase environment. This is something that's given us major problems in the past with we've had several data issues, and going to track that down during a budget cycle where we have thousands and thousands of files being loaded was a total nightmare. So what we did was we set up a process to run on a daily basis, which scans our FDM outbox folder to be able to look for any error files that have been created. And what we'll do is we'll take all those error files, and the bot will put it in an email, and the bot has its own email account in Outlook. And each day, if there is an error file that's created, an email will go out with a copy of that error file to the pertinent administrators, so that they can quickly dig into what the problem was, contact the end user, and limit chasing problems as they become bigger if nothing is noticed. And we found that this was a bit of a mix of if you have thousands of files, there are different error files that are created. Here we're looking solely for Essbase error files, and we were able to build a bot which was able to focus on certain key strings of text in the file to be able to load the correct files into the email and send to the administrator. And this was a really huge IT win for us. That allowed us to go into other systems and search the audit logs of SAP, which we're currently building now with our UK partners, and our external audit partners who do our systems audit every year, to make sure that we scan every single day to see if specific changes are being made, who is the person making those changes, and if that is in line with what we are expecting from an IT governance perspective. So as I mentioned before, we work with Automation Anywhere as our automation partner, and bots are virtual workers. So we have unique Essbase, HFM, FDM IDs for whatever system that our bots work in. This first of all allows an audit trail for us and to be able to go back through our audit logs to see what the bot is actually doing. So we really have two sets of audit trails with our Hyperion audit trails, and then Automation Anywhere does a really good job in keeping their own audit trails of what the bot is doing, and you can customize that up and down to whatever your comfort level is. If you want to include screenshots of certain aspects of what the bot is doing, that can certainly be done. And again, this keeps the administrators or the auditors happy. In my previous life as an administrator, I'm very happy to see that all of the actions that a bot does are in the audit logs. So we're also able to give bots unique email addresses so they can send and receive emails on their own. Now, the great thing about bots being able to receive emails is, I'm going to go into this more in the next slide, but it gives users the ability to kick off the bots, and it's not purely an administrative task. One of the goals we have when we develop these bots is I want to push these to the user and give the user as much responsibility for them as possible so that I can move on and develop my next project. And it does give the user a lot more flexibility to be able to do ad hoc work as it's needed. One of the huge issues that I think a lot of companies have, and ourselves included, is we have a point of sale system and we have our Hyperion Essbase system, which don't talk to each other. So the challenge is, how can we go through and make these systems speak the same language? And RPA is something that presents the perfect opportunity to tie out our reported sales in Essbase versus a point of sale system. So what we're able to do is we're able to take extracts from both systems and tie them together in a really unique and cool way. As you see this extract from our point of sale system, which first of all, I don't think anything at my company costs $10, but for the sake of argument, we can use this as an example. This is something that we get from the point of sale system, and we are able to go back on a however daily, weekly, monthly basis to make sure that our point of sale system is tying out with Essbase. When previously that was getting two huge Excel files and trying to tie them out, what we were able to do is get some system convergence in place and be able to have these systems speak the same language through our RPA tool. So how did we do that in Essbase? The way we did that is we used data export scripts to extract the specific set of data that needs to be analyzed and load it into different folders in our Essbase application drive. By loading it onto the Essbase application drive, we saw increased performance rather than going across different networks. So I think that was a key find for us in trying to get the bots to go as fast as possible, because the bot can only move as fast as your network does. If you get a bot, it's not going to necessarily go as fast as possible and increase network speed. It's only going to go as fast as your network. So if you're expecting that RPA is going to take you at supersonic speed. You have another thing coming, unfortunately. But by using data extracts, we're able to do two different types of data filtering. One of the things that we were able to do was to load the data extracts directly into a smart view and have our bots refresh the smart view for us. The way that we did that was we created data templates. I'm just going to bring one up now. So what we would have on this screen is we would paste our Essbase data extract, and going across here, we would have smart view formulas, which can be copied and pasted down by the bot. So what we're getting here in yellow is something that's really user friendly, and was a big problem with a lot of our end users, is that they didn't just want to see the Essbase code. And if we talk about speaking two different languages, I think functional end users and Essbase administrators are definitely speaking a different language. And what we're able to do here is to use the smart view formulas to be able to give the end user a usable product that they're able to send out to all of our local countries. We're also having columns which have differences and thresholds. And what we have when we refresh the file is an database extract that has been turned into a usable smart view file. The tricky part with this is to be estimating the amount of time that a smart view refresh is going to take, which is especially a problem with a large data set. The way RPA works is you can tell it to wait 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or wait until the screen changes. So to be able to look at a data set in smart view and estimate how long it's going to take to refresh is definitely something that was a challenge. That was a challenge for us, and something that we were able to get around in the second set of bots that we did, in taking the lessons learned from the first and applying them to the second. What we were able to do with Automation Anywhere is, in Automation Anywhere, there's an inherent SQL command, which you can use to search for different aspects of a large data set. So we were able to turn our data extracts into a database in and of itself and run the data evaluations on that. You could also use macros to do it, which is something, depending on what kind of programming background that you have, to be able to go through and use this with large and complex data sets. So for instance, if we're looking at every single return that we have ever had, we were able to add this column, which is days between the customer buying the product and the customer returning the product, and spitting out just any returns that are over, say, 15 days. And by using a programming solution, or by using the SQL solution that's inherent to Automation Anywhere, we were able to do that very easily, and easily go through large data sets without having to go through any kind of Excel filtering or any manual keystroke process that was previously being done. One of the other things that we've learned from, and I've learned personally from the beginning, is I want to give as much power to the user as possible, or else you're going to be the one that's forever running that process. So one of the things that we do is we make interfaces as easy as possible for the business user to run. And we also want to make it as variabilized as possible, so that we don't have to keep changing the Automation Anywhere code. So what we're able to do is provide the user with a file that they're familiar with in Excel, which provides simple drop-downs where they can select the region they would like to run. They can select the reports that they would like to run. They could select scenario, year, period, and currency. And the reports will run based on the selections that they have made here. Additionally, this report is there, this file is theirs to maintain. If a new entity needs to be added, the user can do that by adding the Essbase code, the alias name, the region that the new entity is in, and then what's their threshold? We don't want to be saying, oh, something's off by 10 USD. I want that to be spit out as an error. What we want to do is to be able to enter a number that makes sense with your business. Now, as a developer of this and as an admin, I've never seen this file since I handed it over to the functional teams. It's purely theirs to maintain. And all of this information that's in this file is passed along to RPA and to Automation Anywhere through an XML configuration file. And that's really been a huge win for us, because we can give the end user the flexibility to be able to make any changes that they want on their own, and it really puts the power in the end user's hands. Being able to give them that power not only helps with the administration of the process, but also makes the end user feel that they're the one that is fully involved with RPA, and that helps breed other ideas going forward. So that's something that we found to be very successful when it comes to, again, evangelizing the process across the company. And again, this is an example of what I just showed on how users can go in and add new entities to a file that they're empowered to use on their own. One of the other big wins that we had is we didn't want our Essbase admin having to run extract scripts whenever RPA was ready to run. So how were we able to go about changing that? We enabled a macro which can run a batch file, which in turn passed the variables of what reports we wanted to extract from the system to be run on Essbase. So one of the big wins here is that the end user can run this. It doesn't have to be run by an Essbase administrator, and everything can be done in the end user's own time. You being able to kick off a Maxls via this batch file has been a huge win for us, and something that we're looking to implement across the board in ways to give our users a little more power in what they're doing, and a little more power in dealing with Essbase in a safe way, where we're not necessarily worrying about having business users affect the systems team and the administrator's task, and as well as the database. So, I mean, I think it'd be, I can't sit here and sing the praises of RPA and the ways that it can work with Hyperion without giving some of the drawbacks. First of all, the virtual users need real-life Hyperion licenses. So depending on what your license count is, this can certainly be an issue. And especially depending on how you're testing and running these processes, we have we have 2 production bot runners, which are the actual users that go in and run the processes, but for any testing, we could have up to 5 or 6 developers at a time. So you're looking at a license count impact that could possibly get up there if you're not careful. So before you kind of think about how you best want to move forward with RPA and dealing with Hyperion, license count is definitely something that you have to think about. As I mentioned before, RPA can only move as fast as Hyperion. So putting an RPA on top of any kind of Hyperion system is not going to put your system into hyperdrive. It only goes as fast as you can type. And granted, it types really fast, but it's only going to move as fast as your system can extract. It's only going to move as fast as your email servers go if you're waiting on email. So keep that in mind, that this is not this is not a bullet train that you're putting on top of Hyperion. This is really something that you're looking to enhance what you're doing with Hyperion. So, I mean, in conclusion, I think the two biggest items to take away from what we've learned with doing RPA at Chanel is RPA is great for some system convergence work. If you're looking for multiple systems to talk to Essbase or to talk to any of your other Hyperion systems, I think this is a really great solution to be able to put on top of Essbase. But I think it's a really fine line sometimes to be able to walk between what's throwing RPA at maybe a bad Hyperion process that's been in place for a while, and what is that sweet spot where you can get in and really do some good with leveraging RPA and Hyperion to have 2 or 3 different or 4 different systems talk to each other. The other thing is that RPA is great in dealing with any kind of external systems. So if you're talking about any kind of system, say from a third-party shipping company or an insurance company that has big sets of data that you'd be interested to go through and query, then RPA can definitely do a good job in linking those systems. And I think the final thing is, people, I think, overlook sometimes what RPA can do from an IT environment. System audits are terrible. I don't think anyone likes doing a system audit. And what RPA can do is just really help you. If you work with your external partners, and our external audit partner has been very helpful in giving us exactly what they would need to be able to sign off on a process that has shortened our time when it comes to system audits, and that has helped us greatly from getting IT more comfortable with an RPA process, although that's still a work in progress in some phases. And next is to get your external audit partner comfortable with what you're doing. So if I can give 2 takeaways, it's really the system conversions piece, and the IT audit functionality is very helpful when it comes to using RPA with Essbase and Hyperion. So with that, I will be happy to use the rest of the time to take any questions.
All right, that's great. Thank you so much, William. It looks like we do have a handful of questions that have come in, so let me read each one to you. The first one is, what's the format of Automation Anywhere code?
It's really its own format. They'll suggest you can use a recorder to do the types of processes like you would doing a macro. But the recorders really don't help, which is why the consultancy cost is where you're really going to see a large spend. Unfortunately, I didn't know any type of automation coding going in. As more of a finance systems person, I'm dangerous enough to build my own bot. But where the developers really come in is to be able to input error handling into your bot. So if for some reason some data is not where you expected, or you get an unexplained pop-up in Hyperion or in Excel, they can get you around that, so you're not getting bots that fail all the time. The other thing I'll say with Automation Anywhere code, to give everyone a little bit of a warning, is Automation Anywhere just came out with with AA 2019, which is their latest and greatest. It definitely has some improvements over the previous version, but there definitely is some time that needs to be spent on tinkering. I don't want to say changing, but tinkering with the code from previous versions to make it work perfectly in AA 2019. So if anyone's thinking about doing that kind of coding with Automation Anywhere, I would definitely talk to them first.
Okay, and I think this might be a follow-up question to that. Is it only applicable for Windows machine, or can it also work in any flavor of Unix?
I would be making an assumption if I asked that question, being that I've only done it on Windows machines.
Okay.
But I don't want to make an assumption, but I'm assuming it can be done on any machine.
Gotcha. Okay. And then another question: how do you limit access to data sets?
So if you're talking about limiting access to data sets by what the bot can see, we do that through regular Hyperion security. So for instance, if we were feeling uncomfortable, because what the bot does is it looks at the absolute level 0 data set. So if we're feeling uncomfortable with the bot seeing, what our highest level, say, gross profit is, or any kind of the high level profit numbers is, well, we have restricted it on that. But all security is going to be done within the Hyperion tool. The security that's done within Automation Anywhere is securing things like the password for the bot, so that no single user can go in and access the bot's password. That's something that is hard coded in with the Automation Anywhere administrator. But if you or I, if a regular John Q user was even watching the bot run, it would not be able to tell what that administration password is.
Okay. And what is the advantage with Essbase of Automation Anywhere against UiPath or Blue Prism?
So, I mean, I think that goes to the bigger question of what's the advantage of Automation Anywhere over UiPath or Blue Prism. Personally, when we were making that decision, we felt that Blue Prism and UiPath were a little more code heavy than what Automation Anywhere was at the time, because we really wanted to push this forward as a functional business owner led process. I think a lot of the advantages of Blue Prism and UiPath at the time, including the data flow models, which I think was the big one that we thought we were missing out on by not going with UiPath, has been addressed in AA 2019. So I think these companies constantly leapfrog each other and take each other's technology and are constantly updating. But to specific, why did we use Automation Anywhere? From a Hyperion standpoint, there was nothing beyond who we were looking to code the actual bots.
Okay, all right, and just a couple more questions. Can we call SQL process from RPA to process data before loading to Essbase?
Yes, there are. You can actually go right into the SQL database and do it. The reason that we don't do that is, as I was talking about, our partnership with IT and getting them to trust Automation Anywhere to actually have access to that SQL database. But yes, that is an inherent process with Automation Anywhere.
Okay, great. And this looks like a two-part question. So the bot has access to whatever you give it, and any user can run the bot.
No, only specific users can run the bot. So we'll have that file that I was showing to be password protected, and to only have access for the specific users in our FP&A and accounting departments that would run those reports.
Got it. I think you've just answered this second part. Expanding on that, if I had a user who should only have access to a subset of the application's data, would that require a separate bot that mirrored the user's access?
Yeah, I think it would. There might be ways. There might be some ways around it, but I think that would require a separate process. But not necessarily a separate process. It might require just a separate password. So you can use an if statement that say, if I was using it, use one username and password, and if say Mike was using it, we'd use another, and we can restrict data based on that. But there definitely are the opportunity to use if or statements throughout the process.
Okay, great. Good. Well, it looks like those are all the questions. Any further questions for William?
If anyone has any further questions, this is recorded, and my email address is at the beginning. So please feel free to reach out, and I'll be happy to discuss anything more technical or anything on our automation journey. So thank you very much for being able to speak with you today.